Hello there, people of the modern age. My name is Albert Finches, the man currently planning to win a 50-kilometre marathon whilst being hoisted upon the back of my bodyguard. He's been training up a storm of late, so I've been sequestered to my offices on account of the swimming pool strike, which is hard to explain, but I will. In the meantime, I thought I'd cheer myself up today and keep things short. I've got a fascinating thought that has been occupying valuable space in my noggin. It all begins with a simple question. What did you actually want to happen? There's been an absolutely infuriating trend lately of films and television series refusing to end as they ought to, not only differently from what the fans expected, but in ways that seem fundamentally at odds with everything that came before. It's as if the AI writer suddenly remembered no one will bother to proofread its work, so it decided to play a cruel trick on humanity. A cruel trick indeed. Now, I'm not referring to dreadful films with barely any conceivable plot to begin with, like Elio that was somehow Oscar-worthy. These have become the norm. I'm talking about long-beloved stories that pull on all the strings only to end in such an abysmal way that one begins to suspect the original writers were quietly swapped out halfway through production. It doesn't make sense for the story, it doesn't make sense from a creative standpoint, and more often, it doesn't even make any logical sense. And that got me thinking, why? The ultra-worst ending. That's what they call it, my conscious friends. The world is filled with a plethora of stories that somehow manage to reduce years of our emotional investment into the single worst ending they could possibly devise. They could have done literally anything else. They could have ended the production by filming someone farting into a rainstorm for 20 uninterrupted minutes, and I'd have applauded the artistic restraint compared to what we actually received. It takes not only a certain level of detachment from your own story, but, as I suspect, a genuine resentment towards the audience that grew to love it. Game of Thrones fits this category rather splendidly, like how my tailor's gloved hands accidentally cupped my balls. Not only has the original author proven seemingly incapable of finishing the damned thing, to which, goodness, I wouldn't know how to finish it myself, but it gave us such a disappointing ending that I half expected the convention panels afterwards to feature a segment where the creators were allowed to slap audience members across the face whenever they pleased. I know I'd pay good money to see that. A fan would walk in happily and ask, "Was Daenerys always insane?" "Slap!" one of the producers would respond gleefully, reciting again that he forgot the very plot points he put into the blasted thing. The greatest story ever told, they said. Talk to my waxed balls. Wife's idea, insisting it was a fashion statement. I absolutely despise the whole experience, but she looked so delighted, I simply couldn't refuse. Yes, the worst possible ending occurred. I'll point out a couple of conclusively pointless stories that meet this criterion. First being The Umbrella Academy. I don't know what these blokes were smoking, but we felt it, and it was slightly demented. This is a strange case because it feels like this gorgeous group of pals and gals somehow got discouraged by poor fan support, or their writers lost faith in their own project. What started out as a hopeful and clever reinterpretation of one of those essentially never safe for any place type of comics mutated into something resembling an 8-year-old desperately trying to impress his grandfather in a nursing home using cardboard cutouts and glitter, and he had to keep it short because the old man couldn't care one rat's fanny whether the van was from Scooby-Doo or not. Then there's Pretty Little Liars, a disappointment so disappointing we weren't sure if we should be angry or just pat the fellas on the back for even trying to finish the madness they created. I have to put on my teenage girl vibe and ask, why wasn't Arya the villain from the very beginning? That would have made infinitely more sense than a secret twin? A twin? Are you pulling my leg, or do you genuinely think you're an idiot? What about that recent creative catastrophe that secretly sunk an entire franchise? WandaVision. It was a real battle of wits, this one, between a much more creative audience and a very confused ending. The fans literally in real time came up with some of the best storylines imaginable. Yet there we were, watching the villain, as usual when stories are written by subpar authors, explain to the hero exactly how to win. Don't you just love villains who plot their own demise? I once had my secretary spend several months trying to determine whether our entire production crew was flying to Belgium or Spain, and every effort she made to gather more information, I subtly confused her into thinking it was France instead. Ended up being the most confusing time for the studio. We had 5 flights on one day, every day for 6 months, but I enjoyed every second of it tremendously. Because, as any proper villain understands, one should never reveal one's motives to one's secretary. Wait, maybe I do need therapy. Stranger Things is another story that I feel suffered in the hands of a writer quite like myself. I can feel the tension of a cast not knowing where they were going or why or if it even mattered. No wonder most of the audience for this thing seemed flabbergasted that it even dared to pretend it was ending. And their nonchalant attitude to ending it without building a solid legacy that was right at the tip of their fingertips if they cared is like that capybara just sitting there letting people put all sorts of things on it. What things? Mostly comparisons to cult classics on idiocy, quite like The Room. Yes, I said it. Thank you, you munchkins, for making this much dumber than the 8-year-old one. What about that funny one? The Rise of Skywalker. My blood pressure. And my sheer inability to smile, but I commend the Star Wars crew for nothing else if not being consistently inexplicable all through. I think they want their core audience to be nothing but 3-year-olds. How I Met Your Mother should have been How I Kept People Hostage for entire lifespans just to tell them I'm an idiot who might meet someone else next week. Wouldn't have made for a captivating title, but I would have loved it anyway. Matrix Resurrections went straight to hell, or trapped us all in the Matrix once again. The worst possible ending, my friends, is not an accident. I will repeat, it is either achieved by complete disregard for the story itself, or from a deep and burning hatred for their audience. I always side with the second theory, which leads to a principle most modern writers, directors, producers, and studios classify as everyone's an idiot but me. To be fair to writers, directors, and all the other numbskulls, some fans can be extreme. They come up with theories before the episodes even air. They have years of backlore planned out for a series that's just starting. They willingly stalk conventions just to talk about their favourite plot points. Basically, they enjoy the story so much that they have ideas, which, according to my tipsy observations, is precisely the demographic modern studios find most exhausting. Most other genuine authors and creators would be quite delighted to have such fans, but Hollywood would gladly see them all turn into the mindless zombies held captive in that WandaVision neighborhood. But even when fans are quiet, cause no problems, and are a niche unto themselves, the worst possible endings are still produced. I think of stories like Killing Eve, which lots of people seem to have despised. I haven't watched it enough to know why, but the story seemed to have the type of audience that would be easy to please. Or The 100, which I didn't even know about until I started making this list. It's here where bad endings often happen because they either want to please the fans or give late moral lessons that make no sense compared with everything else. I often think about Seinfeld and the screaming match. Do you know who I am? It was funny. Here's a form of forced moral lessons, as yet another set of stories that let you laugh along at the absurdity only to pull the rug from under you, saying you should have had better manners. And no, don't go around thinking they are creatively changing the narrative of the story to inspire more thought, because there is no Joker, only Dick. The principle of everyone's an idiot but me is when an author, or in most cases the studio, goes with an ending that the fans wouldn't expect because they don't want to have been expected. Does that make sense? Like how my bodyguard was thrilled I was finally going to get in shape for my marathon, not expecting that I would have him carry me the whole way. In this case, because the audience can see the ending coming, the subpar writer panics and changes course just so they can seem clever. I don't know how it relates to my bodyguard, but you get it, right? Instead of agreeing that yes, the fans solved it, they deem it better to blindside everyone in such a way that they ruin the entire experience. Any suggestions, ideas, or backstory the fans come up with adds fuel to the fire of this superiority complex, to the point that they could literally keep producing a hated story just to drive the nail in deeper. Like that Last of Us debacle. My goodness, that was a travesty. The fact that they still made it, and somehow made it worse, drives home this hidden contempt for the audience. It's all well and good when a silly niche story ends in a stupid way. It won't change the world. We can choke it up to, they're idiots and we're too trusting. But what if the bad ending is a ticket to force on you a truly dark nature? Now, prepare yourself for one hot potato of an idea that's completely barking mad, and yet more fact than plausible. Let's look at The Boys, which true fans say had an abysmal ending simply because that Homelander guy didn't cause as much chaos as he promised. Now come closer, my conscious friends, and really help me think through this. From the moment the story came on, nearly every single word from the guy's mouth was centered on his superiority to everyone else. He was planning on proving it, or was so poorly brought up that he saw no other way than outright carnage on all sorts of people. It spiked the whole debate on nature and nurture, heroes and villains, and complex characterizations in which anyone can be either the villain or the hero, and we all watched with bated breath, expecting a horrible outcome. With bodies raining down from the sky, this show would therefore finally reveal to their audience the true message on creating heroes in our heads and raising them up above everyone else, politically, socially, and even personally. It would have been a powerful message if done right. And then he just ended up dead. And there was no imprisonment for the character, so he can make amends like that other show that, for surprisingly good reasons in hindsight, didn't fully commit, so he can just learn something. Anything. This is a classic bait and switch that could arguably be used psychologically to damage anyone's psyche. In this case, making people harbour a truly sinister worldview of anticipating horrible consequences in a story, only to chicken out and leave the underlying message unresolved. And no, I'm not a psychopath wanting to see such horrible outcomes, especially in a story that pleased itself in showing disgusting levies of gore. Wait, what was I saying? Oh, yes. Then, in a show of self-righteousness, they ask their audience, really, what did you want to happen? Did you really want me to show an ultra-powerful maniac destroying the world? Or something that would make you care enough to never let it happen? Did you want me to show you an actual consequence of this type of thinking? Yes, you'd say. That was most of the story you were telling me. I was hoping you were going to write a clever solution on the danger of unnecessary vilification or creating false heroes that would shake my worldview for the better. She'd gasp with a hand to her heart and scream, "You're a monster! You've always been a monster! I, as the very clever author I am, simply reveal your nature to you. Now, go and do with that nature as you will. Because it wasn't me who was crazy. It was you." Therefore, the unfulfilled ideas of stories seep into the real world as a constant emotional grip on society that would have been better extinguished if the story had concluded as expected or never existed in the first place. Just like how Juliet and Romeo had to die, there are certain truths in a story that must happen to make it more complete, to make it have a lasting moral message and not just mindless entertainment. Even the story of good versus evil will end in a satisfactory way that everyone will expect. I imagine it to be like if the boy who cried wolf wound up with the whole neighborhood stealing his flock for the wolves because they just kept waiting for it to happen so much they got carried away. Or when a magician flashes the image of an angry clown in front of your eyes every single time, but does nothing with it. So every time you look at yourself in the mirror, you see the angry clown. The attitude and mindset of the unfulfilled expected ending transform you in a way that only honest students of how the mind works can explain better. I've tried. I'm so exhausted because even I don't grasp it fully, but goodness, I've tried. I think I've earned a 10-hour nap today. The result of all this madness is the broken society catharsis. After watching a series for 8 or, God forbid, 10 years, and it gives you the worst possible ending, you will find yourself looking for a place to vent. Why? Because sad as they are now, the stories have become a part of our lives. They are some of the building blocks of your memory. highlighting pivotal moments in your life. They shape your values and the things you eventually love. They form the manner in which you navigate life. And when they end in an obviously malicious way through the hands of uncaring writers or studios, they take with them the possibility of catharsis that is very vital to how you frame certain views on life. And when these views aren't shaped properly, everything about life becomes horrible and miserable. Seeing as stories were originally meant to heal these pockets of brokenness, not invent them. Therefore, your catharsis comes from enjoying the brokenness that the stories didn't resolve. When you see the world getting worse and worse, either by your hands or others, there's a sickening thought of absolution into thinking, great, let it all burn. And without realizing it, you yourself end up more broken and more deceived. Take it from a man who was called in by several therapists offering me free counsel after the whole stranding of cast and crew in various places, and yet all I do is write more and more silly stories to net more and more money. Stories with horrible endings don't just become the things that take away the barely little meaning we have left in the world, but encourage its ultimate demise, especially any meaning we can have in ourselves. If you don't believe me, just look around you with the hindsight that bad endings of this kind are a new and improved upon phenomena of the last couple of decades. Has humanity gotten better or worse? I'd say more profitable. Talk about the greats from Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, the MCU, James Bond, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Never See Them, that ended up getting worse and worse despite fans writing out entire essays on how to improve things. In the older days, some greater care was given to storytelling and its consequences, or the authors would be laughed out of the theatre. But today, any Tom, Dick and Harry feels qualified to be a storyteller. Especially for children's stories. It's no wonder these little rugrats are becoming the cruelest devils every day. They can't read or carry on a functional conversation. They'd probably try transforming into wolves themselves just to get back at the boy. I will end with the impassioned words of my tailor on why we need pants, and simply switch some words. Stories shape our lives and how we view and are viewed in society. The greatest stories have the power to make us better, stronger, and wiser than we ever thought possible. When stories end in a manner contrary to everything that came up above it, it tears at the fabric of the mind. Guess I only changed 2 words. As for the swimming pool strike, I was on a diet, you see, and I thought a laxative in the alcohol would be beneficial for me as I slowly melted on the lounge chair, only to find out that everyone was planning on getting drunk that day. I'd spiked the whole supply. I hope you can tell that it wasn't my fault. We were at a swimming pool. What idiot gets drunk by a swimming pool? Anyway, now you can all kiss closure.